All right, so you're really interested in XTNT stock, huh?
Seems like it.
Yeah, well, I've got a whole stack of research right here.
Yeah.
Articles, reports, you name it. And the big question is it a good investment or not?
That's a good question.
We're going to find out, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to deep dive into everything XTNT, from their products and financials to their market position and, of course, the risks, all the stuff you got to know.
Yeah, we're going way beyond the surface here, you know. It's not just what they do, but why it matters, especially if you're thinking about putting your money in.
Right.
And I got to tell you, there's something about their production strategy, kind of a twist that's really going to make you think. We'll get to that later, though.
Ooh, I like a little mystery. All right, so first things first, what exactly does XTNT do?
Well, they're all about spinal solutions, like literally.
Okay.
They develop and make these things called orthobiologics. It's basically stuff that helps your body, you know, regrow bone. And they also make spinal implant systems for those complicated spinal fusion surgeries.
So they're giving surgeons the tools they need to get people back on their feet.
You got it. High-tech stuff to help people. It's pretty cool.
That's a good combo.
Yeah.
Helping people. High tech. All right, I'm already interested. But looking at their history, it seems like XTNT didn't just appear out of nowhere.
You're right. They had like a pretty interesting journey to get to where they are now.
Okay.
So they actually started as a biomaterial testing lab, which is, you know, pretty different from making and selling actual medical devices. But over time, they made some smart moves, you know, really evolved their business. And one of the big turning points was this acquisition they made back in 2015. They bought X-Spine Systems.
So they went from just testing stuff to actually making the implants.
Exactly. And that put them right in the middle of the spinal surgery market.
Big move.
Huge. And then last year, they acquired some assets from Sergaline Holdings, which added even more products to their lineup.
So they've been carefully building up their presence in this market.
Sure. They've been playing the long game.
But, okay, having lots of products is one thing.
Right.
But are they being led well? Are they making the right decisions?
That's the thing about evaluating a company, you know?
Yeah.
You got to look at the management. It's so important, but a lot of people forget about it. And with XTNT, the CEO, Sean Brown, he's the one to watch.
Okay, Sean Brown, tell me about him. Does he inspire confidence or is he a little risky?
Well, he's been in the medical device world for over 30 years, so experience, he's got it.
Okay.
And his team is solid, too. You've got the CFO, Scott Niels, super strong financial background. And then there's the COO, Mark Schellenberger, a real expert in orthobiologics.
So he's got a team who knows the industry.
Yeah. Real deep expertise there.
That's good. Right.
It is, but experience isn't everything, you know? We got to see how they actually make decisions. And one thing that's really caught my eye is this move they're making to bring their biologics production in-house.
You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with that? Why the big shift?
Well, for a while, they were relying a lot on outside vendors for those biologics, and it wasn't really working out that great for them. They were having all these supply chain problems.
Yeah, supply chain issues are rough.
Yeah, and it was hurting their profits, you know?
Yeah.
So now they're trying to take control, be more independent.
Okay.
By doing it themselves in-house, they can fix those supply chain issues,
Right.
have more control over the quality of their stuff, and maybe even boost their profit margins.
They're like, we got this. We can do it better ourselves.
Yeah, it's a bold move. But it shows they're actually dealing with their weaknesses, you know, trying to be more efficient.
I like that. But, okay, leadership, strategy, that's all great, but the numbers got to add up too, right? What about XTNT's financial health? How are they looking overall?
Okay, so that's the next piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And to be honest, their financial performance has been, well, a bit of a roller coaster the last few years.
Oh, roller coaster.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound too good.
Well, it's not all bad. They've had 5 quarters in a row now with positive adjusted EBITDA. And that's, you know, a key measure of profitability. Basically, it filters out some of the accounting stuff, gives you a clearer picture of how the business is really doing.
So like peeking behind the curtain to see
Yeah.
how they're really performing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And 5 quarters in a row of positive adjusted EBITDA tells me that, yeah, they've had some ups and downs, but their core business, it's becoming more profitable. They're also expecting to hit positive operating cash flow by the 4th quarter of 2024,
Okay.
meaning they'll be making more money from their actual operations.
And positive cash flow, that's always a good thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. More cash means they can reinvest, pay down debt, maybe even issue dividends.
Speaking of dividends, XTNT, they don't currently pay them, do they?
You're right, they don't.
Some investors might be wondering why.
Yeah, it can raise an eyebrow, but it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yep.
They're still in a growth phase, remember? And they've made it clear that they want to use those profits to keep expanding. They're thinking long term, hoping to create more value down the road.
They're like, hold on tight, we're going somewhere big. You're coming with us.
That's a great way to put it. But before we get too excited, we got to see what the market thinks, right? Are the analysts as optimistic as XTNT seems to be?
Good point.
And what about those risks? We got to have those on our radar, too.
Yeah, we've laid some groundwork, but there's definitely more to uncover. Market sentiment, those potential risks, and of course, that interesting ownership structure you mentioned.
Oh,
We'll dive into all that right after this. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and we're ready to dig even deeper into XTNT. We've talked about their journey, their leadership, gotten a peek at their financials, but what's the market saying? Are the analysts feeling the same way about XTNT as we seem to be?
well, it looks like the market's starting to see XTNT's potential.
Oh, good.
Analysts have a buy rating on the stock right now,
Okay.
and their average price target is $2.10. Plus, just in the last month, the stock's gone up over 15%.
Wow, a buy rating and a nice stock jump.
Yeah.
That's pretty promising. But analysts aren't always right, are they? I mean, they're just making educated guesses.
True. You always got to be cautious. Those analyst projections, like the one saying XTNT's revenue will hit $133 million by the end of 2025, take those with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Things change fast in the market, you never know.
It's like trying to predict the weather. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get drenched. All right, so we're not going to take those projections as fact, but it is good to know the overall sentiment. What about those investors who are betting against companies, the short sellers? Are they circling XTNT?
Actually, the short interest on XTNT is super low, only 0.21% of the float, which means even those who are looking for companies to fail, they don't seem to be too worried about XTNT.
So even the skeptics aren't too skeptical.
Nope.
Another good sign. Okay, so who are the big players holding all those shares? Is it mostly individual investors like you and me, or are there some big institutions calling the shots?
XTNT's ownership structure is pretty interesting.
Right.
It's what we call concentrated ownership, which means like a big chunk of the shares is owned by just a handful of institutional investors. We're talking, firms like OrbiMed Advisors and Nantahala Capital.
Okay, so some big investment groups are involved. So what does that mean for the average person who's thinking about buying some XTNT stock?
Well, concentrated ownership has its pros and cons. On the good side, it can make decisions happen faster. And the management and those major shareholders, they're all kind of on the same team,
So less bureaucracy, more action.
Yeah, something like that.
I like that. But you said there were downsides too.
Right. One thing to think about is that the smaller shareholders, the ones with less stock, they might not have as much influence.
Ah, that makes sense.
Their voice might not be heard as much when big decisions are being made.
Right, power dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to remember that even if a company looks good on paper, you got to know who's really in control, who has the power. Okay, so we've looked at the market's view, the ownership, even pointed out some potential problems. But every company has risks, right? What are some things that could trip XTNT up, even with all the positive stuff we've talked about?
Yeah, just like any investment, you got to think about the risks. And with XTNT, some of them are pretty big. For one, the medical device world is incredibly competitive. They're going up against some giants, companies with tons of money and big reputations.
Like David and Goliath, but with scalpels and bone grafts.
Exactly. So yeah, competition is fierce. But there's more.
Okay.
The regulations for medical devices, they change all the time.
Yeah.
And that can be a real pain for these companies.
I bet.
New rules can cause delays in getting products out there, increase their costs, even lead to legal problems.
Red tape and bureaucracy, the joys of healthcare.
You got it. And navigating that, it could be a real obstacle for XTNT.
Okay, so Competition, regulations, what else?
Well, there's always the issue of insurance companies and reimbursements.
Right, right.
Getting them to cover new devices and procedures can be a real fight.
Yeah.
And if XTNT can't get decent reimbursement rates, it'll hurt their profits.
So even if they have amazing products, if insurance companies aren't on board, it's a problem.
Exactly.
And then there's the whole economic uncertainty thing, right?
Right. When the economy's not doing well, people tend to cut back on healthcare spending, elective procedures, things like that. And that could really impact the demand for XTNT's products.
It's true. No company operates in a bubble. The big picture always matters. All right, so we've done a lot of digging here. Business, leadership, financials, market sentiment, ownership, and those risks. It seems like XTNT is a company with potential, but also some challenges.
That's the thing about investing, right? There are no guarantees. Every company has its good and bad sides, its chances, and its threats.
Oh.
And it's up to you to decide if the potential rewards are worth the risks.
Okay, so is XTNT a buy, a sell, or a hold? We'll tell you what we think in just a minute, and we'll finally reveal that interesting thing about their product. And we're back. So before the break, we left you hanging with the big question. Is XTNT a buy, a sell, or a hold?
The suspense is killing me.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But before we get to that, you really got to tell me more about this production strategy you've been teasing.
Okay. It's important because it shows you how XTNT is thinking long term. Remember we talked about them bringing biologics production in-house? At first, it seems like it's just about the money, More control, better profit margins.
Right.
But there's more to it, something a lot of investors might miss.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the bigger picture?
It's all about innovation and being able to move quickly. When XTNT was relying on those outside vendors, they were stuck with, the vendor schedule and what they could do.
Ah, I see.
But doing it themselves, in-house, that gives them so much flexibility.
So it's not just about making what they already make. It's about, opening up possibilities for new stuff.
Exactly. They can experiment more, improve their processes, even create totally new products way faster. They're in control from the raw materials to the finished product. And in the medical tech world, that kind of control, it's a big advantage.
I get it. It's not just saving money. It's about being ready to innovate, to change with the market.
Right. And that's something for you to think about as an investor. Look beyond just the numbers, This move might not pay off right away, but it could set them up for success down the line, lead to new breakthroughs in orthobiologics, make them even stronger in the market.
So you're saying it's not just about quick profits. It's about understanding the company's long-term plan, their ability to adapt and innovate.
Exactly.
Okay, so after all this, the big question, should you buy XTNT, sell it, or hold on to it? What do we...
They have a lot going for them. The variety of products they offer, their growing global presence, a management team that's making smart moves, and those financials are looking better.
But there's some big challenges too, right?
Of course. The competition is intense, and those regulations and reimbursement issues, those can be really tough to deal with. Plus, the economy, it's always a factor,
So it's not a sure thing. There's potential for good returns, but there's risk too.
Exactly. It really depends on what you want as an investor. How much risk are you comfortable with? If you're looking for a company with a good story, a clear vision for the future, and a chance for big growth, XTNT might be worth a look. But if you don't like taking risks, you might want to wait and see what happens.
That's good advice. And remember, everyone, do your own research, understand the risks, and make decisions that are right for you. And speaking of research, if you're looking for more investment ideas, be sure to check out the comments section.
Yeah, Stock Analytics AI has used their fancy AI to come up with some other stock suggestions that you might be interested in.
And just a quick disclaimer, all investments come with risks. Just because a company did well in the past doesn't mean it'll do well in the future. Talk to a financial advisor before making any decisions.
And if you liked this deep dive and want to learn more about interesting companies and what's happening in the market, be sure to subscribe to the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel. They have tons of great content to help you become a better investor.
So that wraps up our deep dive into XTNT. We hope you found it helpful, as you navigate the world of investing, which can be pretty exciting and a little scary sometimes.
The more you know, the better choices you can make. So stay curious, keep learning, and keep on diving deep.